Hello, and welcome to the public workshop on Senate Bill 122, Protective Screens for Temporary Pump Intakes. This workshop is jointly hosted by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and the State Water Resources Control Board. The agenda for today's Senate Bill 122 workshop begins with our first presentation by Mike Conway and Erica Thompson with the State Water Resources Control Board. They will introduce Water Code 1242.1. Then we have myself, Nikki Gebhardt, and John Mann with the Department of Fish and Wildlife. I will be presenting on the new subdivision added to Fishing Game Code Section 1610, and John will discuss the recommended design parameters for protective screens on temporary pump intakes. Next, we have Mike Conway and Erica Thompson with the State Water Resources Control Board.
Thank you, Nikki. My name is Mike Conway, and I lead the Water Board's Recharge and Major Projects Permitting Unit within the Division of Water Rights. Our team oversees the reporting associated with the new water code. I am joined by Erica Thompson, our staff lead on this effort, and we're going to tell you a little bit about the origin of the new law and what you need to know to start taking advantage of what it has to offer. Next slide, please. As you may know, last winter showed us two extremes of climate and weather. We started the year in another dry winter, following two very dry winters. And 7 of the last 10 water years were also very dry. In 2021, decline in groundwater storage was reported to be over 7 million acre-feet in the San Joaquin Valley. In response to persistent drought and associated groundwater level declines, California released its water supply strategy in August of 2022. The plan targeted expansion of average annual groundwater recharge by at least 500,000 acre-feet. Then, in December of 2022, we saw successive atmospheric rivers dump record rainfall across much of California. The resulting flooding in January 2023 resulted in a state of emergency proclamation. DWR's Bulletin 120 reported runoff from San Joaquin River and Tulare Lake watersheds at over 200% of normal. Next slide, please. While many of the areas in California were inundated with dangerous floodwater, this was also a great opportunity to recharge depleted groundwater basins. Governor Newsom released executive orders N423 and later N723. Using the framework of these executive orders, similar requirements were then proposed in Senate Bill 122 and then adopted into Water Code 1242.1. So what is unique about these flood diversion options? Well, they create new sections of the water code created to help manage flooding while also increasing recharge. The code clarifies that the diversion of flood flows for flood management can be used to recharge aquifers without the need for a permit. It's important to note these diversions do not result in a water right. And though not a water right, these diversions can benefit groundwater. For example, a GSA can choose to establish a crediting program for its members. Next slide, please. Now I'd like to introduce Erica Thompson. Erica is going to talk about the history of the executive orders and introduce the new water code section. Erica, take it away.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us for our overview of the new water code section. Please visit the executive orders website for more information. There are links to the executive orders and a table with information from diverted submitted reports. Next slide, please. After scheduled executive order diversions ended in August, we were able to compile some very interesting data. One number of interest is 390,817 acre-feet of flow water that was diverted during the 5-month period. There was a wide range of acre-feet totals submitted by each diverter, from 5 to over 200,000. Next slide, please. This is a summary map with reported individual diverter locations and points of diversion. In these maps, it's easy to see that most of the diversions are in the San Joaquin Valley. Next slide, please. Executive order diversions began March 10th and ended August 31st, 2023. In the works was Trailer Bill 122, which was introduced in January and passed July 10th, 2023. Part of SB 122 was enacted as Water Code 1242.1 through 3. Next slide, please. This is a list of comparisons between the executive orders and Water Code. To put it simply, the Water Code has more descriptive language. I want to speak briefly about a few important points in the Water Code. The terms flood flows and imminent are defined in code. Additionally, there are stronger agricultural land prohibitions. The Water Code requires that the California Department of Fish and Wildlife hold a public workshop to discuss protective screens. John Mann with CDFW will review protective screen requirements later in this presentation. When reporting, a notice is a new requirement, detailing exactly when the diversions will occur. Final reports with diversion totals are due to the board 15 days after diversions end. At the end of each diversion year, the board is required to post annual reports on our website, compiling the information we receive and any recommendations for the coming year. Water Code 1242.1 has a sunset date of January 1st, 2029. This is the end date for all diversion operations under this code, unless, of course, the legislature decides to extend it. Next slide, please. Here's the definition of flood flows contained in 1242.1. The definition is lengthy, but I encourage you to review it. In short, the code references flows in excess of a defined flood stage or channel capacity, and diversions necessary to avoid threats to human health and safety. The section also excludes flows in specific areas from being defined as flood flows. Next slide, please. One of the most common questions we get from potential diverters is, when can we start diverting floodwaters? To find that out, you'll want to find the local or regional entity that has adopted a flood control plan covering the water body you want to divert from. This may also be covered by a general plan. If you are unsure if a flood risk trigger has already been determined, please contact your local county flood managers for direction. Next slide, please. Here we have constraints for flood diversion facilities. Permanent infrastructure construction is not allowed. You must use existing infrastructure or temporary pumps at existing recharge locations. Additionally, temporary pumps are required to be fitted with protective screens. Next slide. I want to point out that some sites are not suitable for recharge. For instance, the floodwaters should not be applied to areas that could cause water quality concerns or damage infrastructure. The code provides direction on the types of areas to exclude. Next slide, please. To comply with Water Code 1242.1 reporting requirements, 3 reports must be filed with the board. Please review the Water Code for the full code requirements. The first report submittal will be a notice by the diverter that includes the date and time that diversions will occur. It must be filed within a window of 48 hours before to 48 hours after diversions occur. Initial reports are due to the board within 14 days of starting diversion. With this report, the diverter will provide an estimate of planned diversion acres and acre feet. Final reports are due to the board within 15 days of ending diversion. This report must provide detailed totals of completed diversions. All 3 reports will be available on our Water Code 1242.1 website. Next slide, please. Our dedicated Water Code 1242.1 website and forms are coming soon. We'll include a link to it on the Executive Orders website when it becomes available. Next slide. I hope you enjoyed the overview of Water Code 1242.1. All questions should be directed to our email address, flood diversion at waterboards.ca.gov. Thank you for your time.
Hello again. I'm Nikki Gephardt, an environmental scientist in the Lake and Streambed Alteration Program with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. This is Fish and Game Code Section 1610. This section includes exemptions for lake and streambed alteration notifications. Senate Bill 122 was enacted on July 10th of 2023, which adds subdivision C that reads, "This chapter does not apply to activities undertaken pursuant to section 1242.1 of the Water Code." Next, we have John Mann, the Department of Fish and Wildlife's Conservation Engineering Branch Manager.
Hello, everyone. On the screen now is the section 1242.1 for the Water Code, subsection E that applies to protective screens, and in particular, subdivision 4. For diversions directly from rivers or streams, protective screens on temporary pump intakes are required to meet the impacts, to minimize the impacts of diversion to fish and other aquatic life. Such screens shall be constructed of any rigid material, perforated, woven, or slotted that provides water passage while physically excluding fish. The screen face shall be parallel to the flow and adjacent to the water's edge. The upstream and downstream transitions to the screen structure shall be designed and constructed to minimize eddies upstream of, in front of, and downstream of the screen, while minimizing entrainment to the degree feasible. It is important to emphasize that this is applicable to temporary pumps diverting flow during flood flows from rivers or streams. Recently, DWR had a media briefing on how the state and its federal and local partners are preparing for the new water year. You might recognize this photo from that presentation from the groundwater recharge portion of the briefing. This could be an example condition where there is a river experiencing flood flows and temporary pumps could be set up on the bank for diversion to recharge groundwater. This photo was also featured in that same media briefing and on this presentation's introductory slide. It shows two temporary pumps located on the bank of a river diverting flow to an orchard. This would be an expected typical setup that requires protective screens. The situation involves using industrial grade trailer mounted trash pumps, usually rented from construction equipment suppliers. The pump or series of pumps would likely be located on top of a levee or high bank adjacent to existing irrigation water supply distribution networks like canals. These types of pumps are called trash pumps because they are made to handle debris and solids such as leaves, pebbles, and twigs with larger impeller vanes and pump housing, more typically used for dewatering construction areas. They usually have a 4-inch or 6-inch inlet size for hose diameter, outfitted with smaller screens or strainers. A typical pump capacity is up to 2,750 gallons per minute, which is about 6 CFS, but some can be quite larger. In areas of increased concern for entraining debris or solids like during flood flows, or in areas where aquatic species protection is warranted, then larger intake screens are needed. These are examples of off-the-shelf intake screens that are designed to protect fish from impingement or entrainment at a water diversion. In the scenario of diverting from a river during flood flows, there can be a higher concern for debris and solids entrainment, so it is prudent to use a larger protective screen, like these shown here. It may be installed in a manifold configuration or readily mounted onto the end of an intake pipe laying on the bank. In general, a larger screen area and smaller screen openings are more protective from debris impingement, maintaining better diverted water passage, and physically excluding fish. The photo on the left is an example of a protective screen set up ahead of flood flows in the Chowchilla bypass. It is attached to a long intake pipe that goes up and over the levee in the background. The photo on the right is an example of a larger protective cone screen at a local shop that has a 55 CFS diversion capacity. Both of these screens utilize a turbine built into the intake manifold that uses the pumped flow to drive the cleaning mechanisms through a high ratio gear reduction drive. Both of these screens meet the intent of the Water Code section 1242.1E4 for protective screens.
That concludes the public workshop for Senate Bill 122, Protective Screens for Temporary Pump Intakes. For more information about Senate Bill 122, please visit the website shown on the slide at leginfo.legislature.ca.gov. For more information on the governor's executive orders, please visit the website also shown on the slide at waterboards.ca.gov. And if you have any questions or comments about the Department of Fish and Wildlife's presentation, please email sb122screens@wildlife.ca.gov. And if you have any questions or comments about the State Water Resources Control Board's presentation, please email flood diversion@waterboards.ca.gov.